video. If you hear noise in the background, that's my daughter. My cat decided to come join us. This is Pippi. She's my baby. This is gonna be a little more of a serious video today. I came to the conclusion that I need to talk about this because if I'm gonna try to do this whole YouTube thing where my content is widely dependent on the way my face looks, I feel like it's something that's going to need to be addressed in the future. This is something that has affected me since I was a kid. It is still affecting me now, and I still expect it to affect me in the future as well. What I'm talking about is trichotillomania. Side note, this is really the first time I've kind of publicly spoken about this in this way, as an educational way, but also as a story of my own personal experience with it. This is a little hard for me to talk about because this really is kind of the next step in my journey to not so much recover from it, because it's kind of one of those things that I've come to the conclusion that I'm never gonna be over this. As a lot of people don't get over trichotillomania in their lifetimes. Some do. Those that do recover from trichotillomania usually go through extensive behavioral therapy treatments as well as medications. So I've kind of just come to the conclusion that this is something that I'm just kind of stuck with my entire life. So this is the next step for me to coping with it, I think. So please excuse me if I seem a little emotional and serious talking about this, because it really is a serious thing that has strongly impacted the way I am, the way I've grown up, and the way I will continue to grow as a human being. So let's talk about trichotillomania. For those of you who don't know what trichotillomania is, basically it can be classified in a few different ways depending on who you talk to. According to this bad boy right here, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, it is referred to as an obsessive compulsive type of disorder, but the trichotillomania kind of community refers to it more as an impulse control disorder, basically meaning it's a disorder where you can't resist the urge or the temptation to do something. In this particular case, that something would be pulling out your own hair. If you're classifying trichotillomania as an impulse control disorder, you're gonna also be classifying it in the same family as like kleptomania, people who are shopaholics, pyromania, things like that. Other publications have said that it is more of a body-focused repetitive behavior disorder, which would be linked along with things like nail biting, dermatillomania, which is when you pull off your own skin. Just things like that that have to do with compulsions with your body. Studies show that 1 to 4% of all people will experience trichotillomania in their lifetime. If we're saying that 1% of people in America have it, that would mean that 2.5 million Americans have it right now. Anxiety and depression are things that are actually common in people with trichotillomania. What's really interesting about trichotillomania is that it's classified in two different kinds. So there's like an automatic one and then like a focused one. The automatic one is where you're kind of in a trance when you're pulling out your own hair. So like you don't remember that you're doing it, or you can't recognize that you're doing it, you just do it compulsively. The other kind are, there are people who kind of make a ritual out of it. So they look for the right hair they want to pull, and they get some sort of satisfaction out of the pulling. And those are the people who, you know, they know they're doing it, but they just can't stop. It's really, really common to have this temptation, this urge to pull. It's an uncontrollable urge where you feel like you just have to. Your body will explode if you can't pull a hair out. I personally fall kind of in the middle of these two things. Most of the time it's a trance thing. Like, I don't know that I'm doing it. There have been some instances for me where I do find myself doing it, but I cannot, for the life of me, make myself stop. I can tell myself in my brain, Savannah, stop, Savannah, stop, Savannah, stop. But no matter how many times I tell myself that, I can't stop. But more often than not, it's just something I don't know that I'm doing. The most common place for hair pulling on the body, number one most common is the scalp. Then it goes on to eyebrows, eyelashes, arms, legs, things like that. More uncommon places are underarms, the pubic area, chest. Men can get it pulling it out of their beard. Personally, I have had the biggest struggles with my eyebrows. And in the past, I also had some episodes with my eyelashes. But for me, it's generally just here. I have really fine hairs back here on the back of my neck. And sometimes I find myself pulling there, which is a really weird spot to be doing it. But for the most part, yeah, it's just pretty much focused on my face. I actually do it a lot like here, but that's kind of more of a cosmetic thing for me. I feel like I would do it anyway. Trichotillomania is something that's actually more common in women than it is in men, and more often than not it starts in childhood or young adolescence. For me, it started when I was 11 years old. I was right there, like right on the cusp of puberty, because before I was pretty normal. My mom said that, you know, I had kind of spouts of anxiety here and there as a kid, but she never really thought anything of it. And sometimes people who have it can go through remission, where you might go a few days, weeks, months, sometimes even years without pulling your hair out. And then a lot of times it can just come back. I've had a few times where I've completely grown back my eyebrows, and I thought I was over it. And one day I kind of just wake up and I'm like, where did my eyebrows go? Because like I said, most of the time for me, it's a trance. The biggest part for me that I think trichotillomania affected in my life was my self-esteem. Growing up was very hard as a kid in middle school with no eyebrows and no eyelashes. Thankfully now we grow up in a time where everyone draws on their eyebrows and everyone's wearing fake eyelashes. It's kind of just a normal way of being, and I don't want to say it's easier for anyone right now, but damn it. I mean, I wish that when I was in middle school, doing this to my eyebrows and my makeup was normal, because back then it wasn't. I was so thoroughly bullied in middle school because of it, and I really let it get to me. It definitely put a huge damper on my self-esteem, and even to this day, 15 years after being in middle school, I still struggle with self-esteem issues, and I still to this day say that it stemmed from the beginning days of my trichotillomania. I've been diagnosed by a doctor with mild anxiety and severe depression. I don't know what stems from what. It's possible that I've had anxiety and depression my whole life, but I just didn't catch it until later in life, specifically about 4 or 5 years ago. But anyway, I think bullying is going to be a totally different video I'm going to make, because I have a lot to say on that issue too, obviously. As far as trichotillomania goes, it's kind of a stress-induced disorder in a lot of people. In stressful environments, in stressful times in people's lives, they find themselves doing it more often, but it's more so on your downtime. When I was researching, I found that this is true with a lot of people who suffer from this. For me, you kind of find yourself doing it when you're relaxing, when you're laying down in bed watching Netflix. Those are the times, if I ever notice me doing it, that's when I'm doing it. But it's also while I'm extremely stressed out. And while at that moment I may not be in a stressful situation, but in general I'm just stressed out and my anxiety is through the roof, and that's when the compulsion to just pull hair out of my face starts. And I know that's very common with a lot of people. And you know what? Some people do have this to the extent where it's more of just like a mild frustration, but for I'd say probably a good majority of people who suffer from this, it actually changes their lives. It is life-altering in a way that it just really brings them down. It brings shame. It brings embarrassment to someone who's suffering from this. It will make you not want to be in a social environment. You might not want to talk to people because you're too busy covering your patchy hair, wherever it may be. It's a painful isolation that you kind of put yourself into. And I remember the days when I didn't want to look anyone in the eye because I didn't have eyelashes and I knew someone was going to notice. And I never had glasses or anything to hide behind as a kid, so if I looked someone in the eye, I was certain that they were going to notice that I had no eyelashes. That was such a frustrating time for me in my life. So I know I've talked a little bit about my personal story, but I'll go a little bit more in depth. Like I said, it started when I was 11. I remember the day that I first pulled a hair out of my face because I was just going into 6th grade. I had just made friends with like these girls down the street who were in the same grade as me. Back in this time, I want to say it was like 2003, 2002 maybe. What was popular was the overplucked eyebrow, like the thin ones, you know, because now everyone's into the whole natural looking thing, but back then, this was early 2000s, everyone had very thin eyebrows, but they weren't drawn on. You had to really be careful back then to not overpluck to the point where you had no eyebrows, but if you had just a few little hairs here, you were cool. So my friends down the street, these new girls, were pretty much telling me like, yo, you need to do something about that hair on your face. So I remember sitting in the mirror as an 11-year-old girl and using my fingers. I didn't have tweezers, so I'm looking in the mirror and it just never stopped from there. I feel like that day changed my life and I didn't know it at the time. I do remember one day my mother noticing that something was up with my face. She said, "Savannah, what happened to your eyebrows?" And I went like this and I said, "I don't know." And I guess my mom took that as, oh my god, you're itching your face, you're itching your hair out. It was kind of a thing where I just let people believe that, because once I realized what I was doing, I didn't want to tell anybody about it because I was ashamed, I was embarrassed. But of course, the overplucked eyebrow was a thing, but like, you overpluck and you have no eyebrows, people are gonna notice and they're gonna make fun of you, and that's exactly what happened to me. Like I said, I'm probably gonna make a whole other video about bullying, about the experiences that I've had with it, because it's rather troubling, and I know a lot of people will be able to relate to it, which is another reason why I'm making this video in particular. Trichotillomania can really make you feel alone. I've never known anybody personally that they struggle with it the same way I do. It's kind of a thing where you just shut it down and you don't talk about it to anyone. You don't tell anybody you have it because, like I said, it's something that you're ashamed of. So you can really feel isolated and alone when you're struggling with this. I really wanted to come down to making this video because I want people to know that they're not alone in this. I've been struggling with this for 15 years and I don't think it'll ever stop. I don't think it'll ever go away, but I've come to accept it, and I want people to accept it in themselves too. And I can understand that it's probably a lot more difficult when you have it more severe than I do. I can draw on my eyebrows, but you can't draw on your hair. You can put on a wig. Those are more expensive options, but they are options. There are options out there as far as your self-esteem goes and helping with that, but none of those things really cover up the pain, because you know at the end of the day when you take your wig off or you take your makeup off, you're gonna look in the mirror at someone that, I don't know about anyone else, but to me I was disgusting. I thought I had ruined myself, and even to this day some days I'm just like, why do I do this? But you know what? It's me. There's not much I can do about it. There's behavioral therapies, there are some medications that go hand in hand with the behavioral therapies that can help together, but there's not really a medication that on its own just makes it go away. So it's really a hard thing. So to those of you who just found my channel looking for a makeup artist, guru, whatever you want to call me, and you look at me without any makeup on and you say, why does this beauty person have up eyebrows? That's why. That's something that I know I'd have to address eventually, and I'm glad I'm doing it because it kind of takes a weight off of my shoulders. And I encourage anyone who is struggling with trichotillomania to reach out. There are groups, there are communities of people who struggle with this that can, if anything, just be an understanding ear. And I strongly encourage anyone who feels this way to reach out. And if you have never heard of trichotillomania up until right now at this very point, at least I can say that I hope I educated you, and I hope that you just walk away from this video with an understanding, while it's something that many of us just don't even understand ourselves. That's it, guys. Thank you for listening to all of this. It is a hard video for me to make, so I do appreciate all the love and support that's gonna come from this, and just know that I am there for anyone who needs to talk about this. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.